Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Let's fix this lighting. Let me know if you can hear me and see me well. Hopefully everybody had a good trading day today. I'm gonna adjust the lighting on this green screen just a little bit. Good audio and video. Thank you, thank you. Welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. I am Coach Jay. You might have been expecting Coach Paul today, but Coach Paul is actually going to join us tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have Coach Paul. So sorry to anyone, I promised that he would be here. Coach Paul may be hanging out in the chat, loud and clear. Thank you, Dre. Coach Paul is going to be here tomorrow. For sure, we will have him on. I'm going to make this adjustment because this is bothering me over here. There you go. Maybe that's a little bit better. But welcome, everyone. If this is our first time meeting, I am Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep Performance Coach for the last little over a year now. I've been trading for 11 years. I was actually thinking about the first platforms I placed trades on. Anyone ever trade on Options House? Coach Robert, first time catching the session. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Dan, I know the suspense is killing you. You want Coach Paul here. I want him here too. He will be here. He's planning his triumphant return to At the Buzzer. So he will be here soon. Anyone ever trade on Options House? I was thinking about, some of the first platforms I traded on. It was E-Trade and then Options House. And then E-Trade actually bought Options House. And I remember being not very happy about that. The interface is, even then, this was 10, 11 years ago. But the interface is very important to our trading, right? I'm adjusting this lighting over here. Some things got moved around on my desk, so this green screen is being a little wonky right now, but we'll figure it out. Let's see, maybe that'll do it. All right, that's a little bit better. But platforms are important, right? It's an adjustment period to trading on a new platform. I know it took me, Schwab bought them. I'm pretty sure it was E-Trade that bought them because I had an E-Trade account, and I was not happy about that switch. Whoever bought them, I wasn't happy about the switch, and I think it was me just being reluctant to change. And the reason I mentioned that is I'm switching over to TopstepX, and it's a new platform. The difference is TopstepX is a great platform. I did not like trading on E-Trade personally, but there's still an adjustment period, right? So the reason I'm mentioning that is, be patient if you're switching over platforms. TopstepX continues to be, an ever improving platform. But if you're accustomed to something, and if you've been trading on something for the past couple of years, give yourself that learning curve to, make that adjustment. Sorry, I got some dogs going off in the background as well. A lot going on here. How was everyone's trading day? Let me know how your day went in the chat. Were you up on the day, down on the day? Anything you learned for the day? I had a pretty abbreviated trading session. You might have seen in the chat that I mentioned I was moving my little brother into college. He's a freshman in college this year, starting next week. So if anyone has kids or siblings or anything like that going back to school, we are getting back into that time, which means we might get some good trading back, right? Volume might be coming back into the markets as everyone's kids are going back to school. So shout out to my little brother, Josh. He's the youngest. I'm one of five. I'm the middle child of five. So finally the youngest of us all starting his first year of college. So shout out to you, Josh. Have a great year this year. And we'll be talking all the time. But Bumpy from Hogue, yeah. Looking at the charts, that's what I saw. I took one trade in a personal account. It was an ES long. Was able to take that one on mobile, actually listening to TopstepTV while we were, moving him in. And we were at the lows of the range, was able to take a trade and didn't expect too much from it, right? Got a couple bucks out of it, especially trading on mobile. I don't want to, make too many executions, but seemed like an opportunity, but pretty choppy day overall. So let's review the markets. To the downside first, we had Nat Gas coming in at number 3, down 1.12%. We have the Mexican peso. Don't know how many traders we have trading that, but down 1.58%. And live cattle down 1.9% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. To the upside, we have the Japanese yen up 0.91%, the Swiss franc up 0.95%, and wheat futures up 0.95% for our biggest percentage mover on the day. And with that being said, the equities didn't do too much, right? I know we've been talking about this record that the equities could break for most up days in a row. We did not break the record. We failed to break the record. I'm going to pull up a daily chart on the ES and we will see exactly that. So I believe the record was 8 days. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row. Today would have been the 9th, but we closed down 0.09% on the ES, just short of where we opened. So breaking that streak, I heard it mentioned on TopstepTV. You might hear it on CNBC, Bloomberg, that the rally is over. The equity markets they're not going up anymore. The doom and gloom, don't listen to it. It's a 0.09% day. It's a down day. It's any of that is just out of the question. The market's been rallying for 9 days. It needs a break, right? You can't run forever. We need to pace ourselves, and we want to see pace, right? We don't want to see the markets just continue to rally, especially on lower volume. We've been talking about some of this move, sell everything, right? Exactly. Sell everything until tomorrow. We have a 1% up day, and then it's, hey, new all-time highs. But we want to see the market consolidate a little bit, in my opinion, especially on some of these lower volume days where we've had some decent ranges on lower volume. I like the fact that the market's consolidating a bit. I know Hogue was talking about the delta in the ES being very heavy negative today, right? I think we closed somewhere around negative 30,000 delta. And what that delta number is just the difference between buyers and sellers. So the way we're reading that is there's more heavy selling coming into today. Obviously, we saw they did not push the price lower, where we pretty much were unchanged on the day. And the trade that Dolby was trading in that house account late in the day was looking for that delta to unravel, right? Where if we're assuming those are shorter time frame shorts, maybe not wanting to hold that position into the overnight, they would become buyers and push the price up, but we didn't see that. So I'm curious to see what happens going into tomorrow. Again, low volume rally over the last couple of days, very heavy negative delta at the highs of that rally. Not saying that this is, the market's all of a sudden going to turn around, but very interesting to see that delta number did not unravel into the end of the day. Value ended higher. So Angel, can you explain delta? We're going to break it down as simple as possible. Let's say, Angel, the market's flat, right? 0-0, no one has made a trade. I go to the market and I buy a contract. That's going to be positive 1 delta. Then Angel, you turn around and at the market, you sell 10 contracts, right? So you're not sitting there and saying, hey guys, I'll sell here if anyone wants to buy them. You're going and saying, you know what, I don't care what prices you have, I'm selling them. And you sell 10, right? I bought 1, you sold 10. Delta is now negative 9, right? Because there were more contracts sold than bought. Now, the way we're reading that is if the ES had negative 30,000 delta today, that means negative 30,000 more contracts were sold than bought, but price didn't move lower. So if you're reading that delta, if you're reading volume, context matters. I saw Deanna mention that in the Topstep TV chat. Context is going to matter for all of this. Look at the delta, right? We can see that the orders were filled and they were selling pretty heavy. If you were a seller today and you sold 1,000 contracts, are you happy with the price action that you've seen so far? I would probably say no. Maybe they're building a position. We don't know what the intentions are behind those market participants, but eventually, if they're sellers and they're selling to open a position, if they don't get what they're looking for, and that's price going lower, eventually they become buyers and push the price higher. So that's how we're going to read that. David Evans, so disappointed that you're starting your segment at 3:15 Central. I thought there was a poll that most traders wanted this segment at 5 Central when the market begins again. David, you're 100% right. That poll was taken on a Friday where we already had the programming scheduled this week to be at 3:15. So we'll make adjustments as we see fit. We don't want to make too many changes and switching that programming around. But if most traders want this at 5 p.m., we will take that into consideration and move it then. Let's break down what happened in the ES today. Again, it was a pretty consolidated day. Not much as far as price action goes. but that doesn't mean that there wasn't opportunity. The first thing I saw, the first thing I saw was this gap that we had open from the close, right? So this is 3:57 Central Time, right? So we closed at 56.25 and we opened the session, Globex open at 56.29. That gap was kind of important all day. We can see in the overnight session, we bounced off 50% of that gap a few times. And then into the New York session open. Into the New York session open, we have our 3-minute opening range here. I'm going to attach an anchored VWAP to that. And a really nice breakout in the morning, right? First half an hour, we immediately got an opening range breakout. The next 3 minutes, right? First 3 minutes, we established the range. Next 3 minutes, we closed outside of that range. And then the following 3 minutes after that, we tested the highs of the range. VWAP is leaving. Looks like the market's going to trend upwards. We know we talked about on the 30-minute chart yesterday, if we pull up Coach Paul's moving averages, the 20, 50, and the 200, they're starting to trend to the upside. So this looked like a market that could potentially break higher early. But as the session went on, I'll leave these drawings on. We accepted back into that range and then kind of just chopped. I know the house account was short in the Nasdaq today, and they shorted with the market coming back into this range. The ES did it as well. We checked above the overnight high, which was 56.41 at the time. Highs of the day was 56.43. Once we accepted back below that overnight high, it was a range day. Lows of the range, 56.12-ish. I know we have Hoag's weekly kickoff high right around 56.12. We looked under it for a second. Hoag, again, your levels. If you guys don't have these levels on your charts, I would highly suggest putting them on there. And again, they're not a call out. They're not a trade call out saying, hey, when the market gets here, you should do this. But they are areas of interest that we often see the market revisit, and they play out pretty well, right? We had what we've seen in this session a few times. We had very heavy selling into that weekly kickoff low. 56.12 again is that price. If I frame out this candle, which is the high of the candle, and this is the 12 p.m. Central candle, right when Dr. Steenbarger was coming on. So maybe not the greatest time to trade because that was a really good session. I was in the car at that point and was able to listen. I do need to listen back to it because I want to listen to that segment with a notepad. But Hoag, great job again. Dr. Steenbarger, always a wealth of information. But we sold below the weekly kickoff low, which is 56.12, weekly kickoff high, sorry, which was 56.12. Couldn't hold below it. And pretty much what we've seen, I think every day since we started this session was one of these heavy volume candles, a close outside of it, and then that candle presenting an opportunity to take a trade, right? Once we get the close outside, and again, you could take the entry here down at 56.08 and the lows of the candle is 56.07, but confirmation that the market is not moving any lower is when we get a close outside of that range, and then we can risk either 50% or the lows, right? If I take a buy somewhere around 56.15 and risking the lows 56.07, that's an 8-point risk. Not too expensive, and if it sounds expensive, you can trade micros as well. But we see from that point, there was just a trend up, right? Lows of the day, we anchor a view up there. It holds as a support and pretty much held throughout the rest of the day. Oh, lost my page there. So to me, a decent range day where there was opportunity. My trade was a buy at 56.14, and I bought a 2-lot in the ES and took them off right around, I took one off around 56.19 and the other one around 56.24. Very happy how I managed that trade because the highs of the move were around 56.29. So I think I maximized it, right? It took about 50% of the overall move and went from there. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to get a drink of water. doing a lot of running around today, so just kind of getting back to my desk. Elvis, well done. Thank you. And let's see. Yeah, I adjusted my lights too. Sorry about that, guys. I was moving stuff around my desk. But that was pretty much it on the ES. I know Dolby had a trade right around 56.20 in the ES into Power Hour. I really like that trade idea. I think where the stop was may have been a little bit too tight, but you have to go with what your original plan was. To stay hydrated, Hogue. Yeah, man. A lot of moving today. I didn't even have to hit the gym. I just lifted a mini fridge over my head. Uh, 56.20s, I think, was the entry. We scaled into about 7 contracts there. Um, I think from a market generated stop, the stop probably needed to go somewhere below 56.13, but that was a lot of risk for the size we were trading. I think that trade was managed pretty well. And we kind of just ran out of time where we were expecting that unraveling of Delta and looking for some buying. We kind of got it into the close, after we have to close our positions, which you see happen a lot of the time. But I thought it was a pretty good trade idea, managed well, and pretty small loss for a 7 contract trade. Let's move over to the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq looks very similar to the ES, and today was a pretty quiet news day. Not too much on the calendar, where we know we have Jackson Hole starting Thursday. We have FOMC minutes coming out tomorrow, and it's not a rate decision, just FOMC minutes, but we know that sometimes brings some volatility as well. So consolidated day, which is okay, right? The market is not just going to continue to run to the upside. So, not surprised to see a little bit of a consolidation. Yeah, and I don't know, this light is bothering me. All right, but pretty much the same story in the Nasdaq. The one thing in the Nasdaq that we talked about yesterday that we traded to today, I'm going to go onto a 30-minute chart, and the gap was from there was this gap that we created on July 23rd, right? July 23rd into the session that, ended on the 24th. The gap low was 19,883. The gap high was 19,945. 50% of that gap was 19,914. We measured out that gap with these fibs here, and we can see how important those levels were today. 50% retracements for whatever reason. Even if it's not perfect, right? These are not perfect 50% retracements. I'm not going to act like they are, but they provide an area of opportunity. We can see in the overnight session, we open up right below that gap. We test into it, kind of chop around it for a little while. We reject that 50%. Somewhere in the overnight session, I think this was around Dakota's class, some traders were saying, hey, the Nasdaq is running, and now the Nasdaq is selling off. What the Nasdaq was doing was testing this gap. Trying to figure out whether or not we were going to trade these prices, and continue to reject it, right? Continue to reject right around 50%, not accepting higher. We didn't see any volume pushes above that, and gave us a really nice opportunity to short. I know the house account, when I was watching, took a short right around 19,815. I think it was the zone the house account was short was 19,815 to about 19,820. Somewhere near the lows of the range, but still a trade that worked out, right? And I think what we were looking for was, and I think I heard Dakota mention it, was a momentum move to break the overnight low. And the overnight low was set pretty much right before the session opened. So we had the opening range low, which was 19,815. Opening range low 19,815. The overnight low was pretty close to that, 19,811. And we saw volume push through as we got into that short. I think the team got into 10 contracts total. Saw there was a $4,000 profit on the day. So nice job to the house account. 2 days in a row above $4,000, which we needed. Again, that getting that account back on the right side of profit Really nice to see, and I think the team worked really well from what I heard on both trades, right? Whether they worked out or not, the process, I think, with sharing all the levels that we're sharing in Discord, in the chat, getting information from the chat as well, that house account process is being narrowed down to, a pretty streamlined process where we can put good trades on. We're not putting on guarantees. We're not saying they're always going to work, but well thought out, risk managed, and having profit targets. I know Dakota had a target lower. He was looking for somewhere around 680s, but we had a consolidated day again in the Nasdaq. We will see what happens the rest of the week. I'm not going to go through this again fully. We tested that gap, couldn't get through it. Again, the highs of the gap are 19,948, we'll call it. So just watch those prices as we trade through the rest of the week to see how the Nasdaq responds to them. I'll go to a 30-minute chart real quick, and then we will go to gold. On the 30-minute, we're still very much above the 200 moving average, which is down at 19,564. The 20 moving average is currently below the 50 moving average. The 20 moving average is at 19,833. The 50 moving average is at 19,861. So not a change of trend, but a little bit of a consolidation. When those moving averages get braided around each other, we see the market's range. But of course, the 20 and the 50 are well above that 200 moving average. This market's in an uptrend for now, and maybe we see some continuation going into tomorrow. Is there any indicator I can use to tell if the market is going to range? Pi, good question. I personally use the moving averages, right? We have these moving averages here, a 20, 50, and 200. You can use whatever numbers, work for you. But when I see the moving averages braided around each other, that means that the market has not traded in a direction for a long enough time to call it a trend, right? And when I see these start to consolidate, I'm going to assume that the market's consolidating as well, right? We see the moving averages here, again, braided around each other, and the market trades in a range. Once they separate, we have a trend. So simply that's how I'm going to do it, right? And you can do that on a 30-minute chart. Depends on what time frame you're trading, whether you want to do it on a daily, a 30-minute, or even a 3-minute, right? Hey, for the last 3-minute candles, is there a consolidation? Coach Robert just put in, ADX is pretty good at giving an idea, but ultimately it's watching price action. And that's ultimately what it is, right? Any indicator is going to give you an idea, but it's better to watch the price personally. And I'm watching order flow to see whether or not there are orders that look like they have intentions of moving the market. There's a couple of different ways to do it. I've found on the higher time frames, using these moving averages really helps me determine whether the market is in a trend or consolidation. All right. Is AI going to replace retail traders, the tabernacle of the congregation? If it does, we have a problem, right? And there's the conversation of, is AI going to replace this? Is AI going to replace a bunch of different jobs? I think the one thing it's going to do first before it replaces retail traders is to augment a retail trader's experience, right? Where if you can use AI to help your process, I think it's a good thing. For example, I have some trading playbook setups that I have. It's pretty much 8 trade types that I look for. And I had a conversation with ChatGPT about these trade types, and ChatGPT knows those setups now. It was actually pretty cool. I was talking to my brother about this the other day. I took a screenshot of a chart and gave levels to ChatGPT, and I said, hey, looking at this chart and the levels that I give you, which one of my trading setups fits this market the best? And it gave me one, right? It picked one of my 8 setups, and we had the playbook conversation a week prior to me doing this, sent in a screenshot. It remembered what my playbooks were, and it said, hey, you know what? This, based on the information that you gave me for the market, this playbook setup fits this screenshot of the market the best. I took the trade in a practice account and wound up working out. Now, is that overfitting data? Maybe. Am I training ChatGPT to take my job? Maybe. But if it's going to trade the way I trade, I think initially it's going to help augment the process, help out our process, make things a little bit easier, and go from there. Coach Robert, I personally don't believe it will replace. I don't think either. Coach Robert just shared a GPT that he made there, so check that out for sure. I don't think it's going to replace us anytime soon. Hayes Records, bro, I did the same thing today as yesterday. Was up $600 on a short this morning, bag held into DLL. That's a common thing. That's a common thing that we see a lot of traders do. What I'm going to say is address why that's happening, or it's going to continue to happen. And that's for all of us. If something continues to happen in your trading, Hayes, I'm going to ask you, right? You made $600. Why was that $600 not enough to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take some of this. Does that mean you made 600 and you need to stop trading for the day? No. If you see another good setup and you want to put the risk behind it, by all means, put the risk behind it. But if you're continuing to make money and then lead to a DLL, there's something happening that's off the charts, right, with yourself that you need to address. Try to figure out what that is. Maybe listen back to that Dr. Steenbarger segment, take some notes on that and address it, because it's going to keep happening, right? Trading is a lot of pattern recognition. We do a lot of pattern recognition on the charts where we say, hey, if the market comes down to this demand area, I should buy it because this moving average is doing this. But we neglect the pattern recognition in ourselves, where we tend to do the same things all the time, right? We're humans, we're creatures of habit. We do the same things. It's about identifying where our good and bad habits are and then figuring out how to mitigate those good and bad habits, right? If I know that I take 2 losing trades and that leads to me tilting and I just end up blowing an account for the day, then I have to figure out how I make that adjustment, or that thing is just going to keep happening. So figure that out. You're able to trade. You're capable of doing something, right? You were up $600 on the day. That's a pretty good day. In my personal account, I made $675 today, and I was very happy with that. So try to figure out where you are in your trading, because from a technical perspective, you can do it. There's something personal going on that's affecting your P&L. Or we can just say it again. If you want to give up some money, I'll send you my Venmo. And if you make $600 and you want to give it away, you can just send it right to me. You're just ungrateful. Well, address that, right? If you're ungrateful, address why you're ungrateful. But again, that's going to keep showing up in your trading. How can I really understand my risk? Larry, that's kind of a loaded question. How can I understand my risk? Maybe, send me a message in Discord and we could talk about that there. There's a lot in that, right? It's not a blanket statement. How can I understand my risk? Trade, if we want to go basic answer, trade a contract size that fits the account that you're trading. If you're trading a 50K combine where you have $1,000 loss limit, trading 5 mini Nasdaq contracts is just default poor risk management. So trade a contract size and a quantity that fits the account that you're trading. We all know the tick value of the instruments that we trade, so it should be pretty easy math, right? You're not going to want to risk a full DLL on every trade that you take. You're giving yourself one opportunity to get a trade wrong or right, and calling it from there. So just look at the basic numbers, and what I will really say is identify a number that you're comfortable losing and be honest with that number, right? A lot of times, and why that's such a loaded question, because it's going to be different for everyone, right? If I tell you only risk 10% of your account and you're trading a 50K account and your DLL is $1,000, but you're not truly comfortable with losing $100, then that number doesn't fit you, right? Maybe you're truly comfortable with losing only $20 on a trade or $50 on a trade. Now you have to adjust to what makes sense for you. There's a blanket overall, hey, don't risk 10%, don't risk 12%. But if you're not truly comfortable with that number, it's not going to work from my experience. So find what works for you. We can go with some basic answers, but you have to truly accept what those losses are going to look like. Here's gold. We made new all-time highs on gold today. 2574 is our new all-time high in gold. I'm kind of slowly making these all-time highs, right? We're not seeing just a rally up. We're seeing an all-time high be made and then that move kind of sell off. We saw the same thing yesterday. We made a new all-time high, sold off. We made a new all-time high and kind of a range-bound day again today. I still think we're tracking up towards that 2,600 level. It feels like it's a magnet. We are, our all-time high is only 30 points away from it, where we closed today, about 50 points away, but gold is still trending to the upside. We can see the moving averages, the 20, 50, and 200 on the 30-minute chart. Still very much in an uptrend, the 20 and the 50 well above the 200 moving average, and just trending to the upside. Trending to the upside. Most of the move in gold to the upside happened overnight. Looks like it started in the London session, where we can see some of these volume spikes coming in. I know Dakota was looking for a trade in slow markets last night. Didn't really play out. A lot of time we've seen the volatility pick up during that Asian session, but it didn't. It looks like it happened during the London session. I don't know how many traders we have trading the London session, but you can see the difference in volume, right? We had a few spikes overnight in the Asian session, but then we have this pretty big volume spike here at 2:45 Central Time. We did have somewhat of a move before that, but to me that volume spike really started the move. If we frame out that candle, believe that set the lows until we made that all-time high, and we sold right back into that range and kind of closed near that range. So somewhat of a balanced day. We made an all-time high, but didn't end on the highs. But pretty interesting move in gold. Anyone trade gold today? Am I going to be on slow markets tonight? I'm not. I'm going to be on slow markets tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Wednesday is my guest appearance on slow markets. I love doing it with Dakota. It's a great session. Great to balance conversation, go back and forth, and speak with him on that. So I will be on slow markets tomorrow. Did anyone trade gold today? Let me know if you traded gold or how you did. And if not, we will move on to crude oil. Crude did something that we talked about during the session yesterday. I'm going to take these moving averages off and we'll look at the levels. So these levels are kind of still on here. These came from a 30-minute chart. And we marked out a demand area in crude. We started to call that high of that demand area 73.45, all the way down to 71.60 really. But what I found interesting is there's an overlap, right? So we measured these lows for August, right? The lows in August were at 71.60, and we measured them kind of up to 72.66, 72.65, and then we took the lows from June, which the low in June was 72.48. And we kind of brought that up to 73.45-ish. If we see where those overlapped, right around 72.50 is where we checked. Again, that low of June was 72.48. The markets don't forget price. We checked that low in the overnight session. You can kind of see where these ranges overlapped each other. Again, they happened during the overnight session. Sometimes the best trade location happens when most of us might not be looking. I don't know how many. All right, Coach Robert, thanks for joining. I'll see you tomorrow. But a lot of times the best trade location happens at odd times, if you will. I'm not usually up trading during the London session. So, this might be the case where you do a Dakota slow markets trade and you say, I want the market to come down to this level and get into a buy here, or a sell, potentially whatever it is. If you identify a level. I personally don't trade that way, but it's an opportunity to get in a trade like this if you're not at your screens, where you can put a one lot on, maybe you put a micro on and say, hey, I want to get in at this price. And it was a really good location, right? It made sense. We had a demand area down there. Those were the lows. We were trending lower. So why not see the market revisit those prices and, potentially pop from there? Again, nothing is a guarantee, but it was an area of interest for sure. I will be watching those prices again as we trade back down towards them. We closed at 73.09 in crude oil today. And what I thought was interesting to the upside, you guys remember this spike from yesterday? We had this volume spike at 11:03 Central Time. the highest volume of the day in crude oil. We framed out that candle. I told you guys that I took a long up to that area. I was long from around 73.85 and took it off as we didn't trade back to these prices. Again, highest volume spike, so we know that there were trades executed there, and it happened in the middle of the day, so it wasn't the close or anything like that. Not a coincidence that today's price action rejected in that same range, right? We know sellers came in here to push this price lower, and this is why I love framing out these volume candles, because you can tell where traders interacted. Gives you areas maybe for potential targets, right? If I bought down here at 72.50, maybe this is a potential target up here at 74.27, which was the lows of this candle. The highs of the day in crude were 74.39, but we traded back into those prices where we know sellers came in yesterday. There are different time frame participants in these markets, right? We're all day traders here. We have to close our positions by 3:10 Central Time. But there are some people who are swing trading crude, right? And maybe they sold here, and what this looks like is they're defending these prices as the market pushes back up. They're still selling, so it gives us a nice rejection off of there for another 1.5 to the downside. So 72.60 was weekly kickoff low. I'm gonna put my Hogue. I don't know how you do what you do. I don't know how Hogue does what he does, but 72.60 weekly kickoff low. And if I had that on my chart, I think I would have just put the order in there. I personally love when, and I trust my own levels, right? But Hogue has a ton of experience, and I was asleep too, Hogue. What's going on, Coach Vince? So yeah, that 72.60. Look at that bounce, right? If you set an order at that weekly kickoff low, you had 6 ticks of drawdown, which on a one lot is $60. I think most of us can risk that. And again, these levels are not suggestions to take a trade, but they're areas of opportunity. And this is a perfect example of the market coming down to an area of opportunity that our senior performance coach pointed out and giving us the best damn trade location of the day. From that level, you had almost a 2-point trade in gold with 6 ticks of drawdown. Hoagie Berra. I think we need to get you a jersey. I need a Hungus meme, something, Hogue, because that's amazing. Again, Topstep daily levels, check them out. If you are on Topstep X, it is one of the indicators, right? You can add Topstep levels, but also we have the Topstep daily levels website that you can check out as well, where all of our coaches have levels. I'm providing levels there. Coach Paul, Coach Vince, Coach Ray, Hogue's levels are there. Coach Jack has levels for the Ags. Check those out. I think they're great. Again, I might be biased, but that's okay. Sometimes it's good to have a bias. But when we see these levels play out this often, and you have, and I'll tell you guys what I do. I usually plot out my own levels first. And then I look at the other coaches' levels because I want to see if there's any confluence, right? We want to know that traders are looking in the same areas, because then that says, hey, you know what? There might be an opportunity here, whether it's to buy it or to sell it. You have to determine that in your own trading and how you establish your risk. But when you have levels like these, again, I had 72.54, Hogue had 72.60. It's close enough. My risk is going to be larger than 6 ticks, so it's a pretty good one. And speaking of the Topstep team, you know, we have coaches providing levels, but we also got content on Topstep TV 6 days a week. We added Sunday programming with Nick Fortick doing his market kickoff at 4:45 Central Time. Nick has done 2 sessions so far. If you guys have not joined those, I would highly suggest doing so. A lot of the price action that we are seeing this week, Nick kind of talked about during that Sunday session, and the same thing last week. Now, does Nick know exactly what's going to happen in the markets? No, none of us do. But preparing for what can happen helps make decisions quicker in real time, right? If I understand that the markets may potentially be range-bound markets for the beginning of the week because it's a slow news week and we have, you know, bigger news coming out later in the week, when I make my trades, I'm going to have that in the back of my mind, right? Hey, you know, you took this ES trade along. Maybe today's not the day where we see 100 points to the upside. Have reasonable price targets, because, Nick talked about in his recap, maybe some consolidation in the beginning of the week. So make sure you join that session. It's great. I will join it every time he does it. Hopefully I can be a guest on there with Nick and do some prep, but a really good session. We also have Slow Markets with Coach Dakota every day, 7:30 Central Time. Myself and D, Monday through Friday for me, 3:15 Central Time for At the Buzzer, and Deanna with the London Open at 3:30 Central Time. So we're pretty close to 24/7 Topstep TV content, hopefully improving all of your trading journeys, or just giving you a buddy to trade with, kind of bounce ideas back and forth from. But love all the programming that we have at Topstep. We also have our Discord server, where if it's not on Topstep TV, you can get it in Discord. Coach Ray, Coach Vince do classes in there every day. Coach Ray usually goes at 6 p.m. Central, Coach Vince at 7 p.m. Central. I'm going to put the link to the Topstep Discord in there right after we're finished here. An hour after, Coach Ray is going to start his session. If you are interested in volume profile stuff, Coach Ray is the guy for that. And Coach Vince does a ton of market profile stuff. I was in Coach Vince's class last night and learned something about developing value areas, which if you look at them, I'm going to let Coach Vince explain it, but pretty supportive when the market starts to trend. So would highly suggest checking out all of the programming when you have the time. The stuff on YouTube is recorded, so if you miss it, you can always go back and watch it. The stuff in Discord is live, but what's great about that, you get to ask these coaches questions directly and get them answered. I ask questions all the time because I'm always learning. All right, so we went over all 4 of the markets. Do we have any questions before we continue? Again, a pretty slow news week. So as we get later in the week, we'll probably have more to talk about as far as, overall context of the market, what things may be affecting the markets. I'll have Coach Paul on tomorrow. We'll talk about how Jackson Hole may potentially affect some market movement. I'll also get my lights fixed so we don't have this annoying flicker behind me. Sorry, that's just a personal thing. But if we don't have any other questions, I want everybody to have a great rest of your night. If you plan on trading tonight or into tomorrow, make sure we manage our risk. That's what's most important. I feel a lot of times we focus on what we can make to the upside, but if you make $1 million today and lose $1.1 million tomorrow, you're not a profitable trader. So manage that downside, establish it before you even put on a trade so you don't have to make those decisions under pressure. You can say, hey, you know what? I'm okay with losing $250 approximately on every trade. Now, you put your trade on and you're going to go from there. Trade location matters, right? We're not just going to throw on a trade and say, hey, you know what? This looks like a good opportunity. We want to measure things to give ourselves the best probability of trades working out. Of course, outcomes are always going to be 50-50, and that's why we want to manage our risk. I could have a 90% probability setup in my playbook, but if this is one of the 10% times that it doesn't work out, I can't let it blow my account. So keep that in mind. What's for dinner? That's a good question, Hogue. I don't even know. I stopped, so my brother's going to school in Connecticut, stopped at a place called Haven Hot Chicken in New Haven. Got the messiest chicken sandwich that I've ever gotten, and I kind of ate it while I was driving, which might not have been the safest thing to do, but I'm kind of full right now, so I don't know what I'm going to figure out for dinner. Hopefully something good, maybe something light. Yeah, chicken. It's a pretty good chicken sandwich. So I know where I'm going to be visiting when I go to visit him on Family Day for sure. But everyone have a good night. FOMC minutes tomorrow, so watch out for that. Those are 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central. You're going to hear about that on Topstep TV, so just watch out for that time. We may see some volume spikes. Trade well, everyone. We will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great night. Thanks.